Welcome to Halacha in a Year, where we can get to learn all the most relevant halacha through the prism of the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch. You are listening to Rabbi Ya'akov Trump. This year is kindly sponsored by the Moshe Group and CA in zechus of Rivka Biela, bas נחמה Shifra, and in honor of Rabbi Trump. Today we're going to be learning the halachas of Siman the 90th chapter in the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch, and it talks about two different things that are not actual work and work through a non-Jew. We're going to divide this into two parts because it is rather long. We're going to deal with things that are not actual work as the first part, and the second part is work through a non-Jew, which we call usually Amir al-Akom. Let's start from the top. So the general idea over here is that there are certain things which are prohibited on Shabbos, even though they're not really a malacha, but they're similar to a malacha and they lead to malacha. This is based on a pasuk in Yeshayahu, where Yeshayahu says, "Im tashiv mishavas raglecha asos chavatzecha b'yom kashi," that if you're going to go on Shabbos in the way that you're going to do things on my holy day, rather than doing that, you should honor it from the way that you walk or the way that you live, in the concern about your assets and the way you speak. And we're going to see some of the applications of this idea that Yeshayahu was describing in society around him. We're going to look at four basic concepts today, and that is running on Shabbos, business and personal planning, hints and payments, and document reading on Shabbos. Let's start at the top. Is it permitted to run on Shabbos? The answer is no, one is not allowed to run on Shabbos. Why is this? So based on the Chazal, they take that pasuk in Yeshayahu and explain, you should honor it in the way from doing your ways, that your way of walking on Shabbos should not be the same way as you walk during the weekday. Are there any exceptions? So the answer is yes, except you're allowed to run for a mitzvah purpose, where it becomes a duty to run. So example, getting to shul, to a shir, something which is of significant mitzvah value is allowed. What about brisk walking? So actually a psia gasa, a large step, is also prohibited on Shabbos. Bigger steps are considered like running. So if one walks at a regular pace on the weekday, one should not be walking faster than one's regular walking when it comes to Shabbos. We move to our next concept, that is business and personal planning. So may you plan personal or business needs for after Shabbos? The answer is no. I may not take stock of needs for after Shabbos. Why is this? So this is also based on that pasuk in Yeshayahu, that you're finding out about your assets. What does that mean? Even if you're not doing anything, I'm not making, I'm not breaking, I'm not producing, but I'm talking about those things, I'm not allowed to talk about things which are malachas. So what examples? So I may not even walk in the marketplace and find a good item to rent after Shabbos, as an example. I may not talk about my plans of what I'm going to be doing. Tomorrow I'm going to be, producing 500 bottles of X. Tomorrow I'm going to sort out that account. You're not allowed to say those things on Shabbos. You're not allowed to use words to describe the malachas or do after Shabbos. May I walk in order to guard my possessions? The answer is yes. You may walk to your property or to your friend's property to guard possessions. So let's say there's a concern that let's say you own livestock and there's a concern that there is a wild animal that may attack your livestock. You may walk to the edge of the pen and stand there to avoid them being hurt or maimed. Let's say there's a tchum Shabbos, the boundary beyond which I'm not allowed to walk on Shabbos. Can I walk to the edge of it on Shabbos so I can be as close as possible to leaving the tchum, the boundary of Shabbos, comes Motzei Shabbos? This is called machshich al tchum, to go and make the darker on the boundary. The answer is no, you're not allowed to do that on Shabbos, and it is only permitted if the post-Shabbos activity is mitzvah related as well. So in that case, or something that one would be able to technically do on Shabbos as well, then one may walk to the edge of the tchum, the edge of the boundary of Shabbos on Shabbos. May I talk about business transactions on Shabbos? So ones which are yet to be, I may not talk about. Ones which have happened, one may talk about, but as long as there's nothing left which needs closing, no loops which need closing, about paying this person or reaching that employee, but one can describe something which one did in the past as long as it's not excessive. Is it permissible to speak about weekday plans? The answer is no. I cannot say I will do X tomorrow unless the activity is something that could have been done on Shabbos, even if it is now it cannot. Are there any limitations? Yes. One should not talk about painful subjects on Shabbos, nor neutral ones which are just going to be a waste of time, which seems to be a pretty good summary of most table talk on Shabbos, unfortunately. Most people just waste their time. They don't take advantage of being with family or talk about meaningful subjects or ideas of value or what they're doing in life. They just talk about nonsense activities. One should not be spending one Shabbos just talking gossip. Are spiritual and communal needs permitted on Shabbos? The answer is yes. One can talk about the important community needs as well. Interceding for community needs are allowed to be talked about on Shabbos. That doesn't mean Lashon Hara about XYZ leader. That means to say about things that one can fix and things that one can contribute to the solution to. What about discussing one's children's education? So one may discuss one's children's education on Shabbos, again, not besmirching schools, rebbes, teachers, but in terms of what can we do? What would be an idea that we can do to make this better for them, to increase? That might be discussed. It's even when it comes to secular subjects, one may talk about it, because teaching a trade to one's children is a mitzvah. Can one hire a teacher on Shabbos? The answer is no. Hiring is not allowed, even for a mitzvah. But it's only the speech-related prohibitions like mimsoch hafasecha, which are waived for mitzvah needs, not the actual Isser itself. May one announce the finding of a lost item on Shabbos? The answer is yes, because returning a lost object is a mitzvah. Is thinking about forbidden weekday topics allowed on Shabbos? So one is technically allowed to think about things, but it's better not to for the sake of Oneg Shabbos. One should, if one's always thinking about what one has to do, one has not released oneself from the weekday, and therefore one will not enjoy Shabbos. One is supposed to have Oneg Shabbos, which means enjoying Shabbos, and that includes not having to worry about everything as well. One should imagine all of one's work is complete as Shabbos comes in, and thereby enjoy what one is actually experiencing. Are there any other limitations on thought? Yes, one should also avoid thinking about anxiety-inducing matters, because it is supposed to be that Shabbos is enjoyable. So anything, a topic which one knows one gets lost in, one knows one can't sleep about, one should not be thinking about on Shabbos. We move to our next concept, which is hints and payments. Can one hint at business matters for after Shabbos to a worker? Yes, one can say, can you join me this evening? That's allowed to be done, but you can't say, be ready for this evening. So meaning to say, you can say to a house help, okay, are you around this evening? That's fine. But you can't instruct them to do to be around. May a worker be paid for something they did on Shabbos? The answer is no. One's not allowed to pay for work done on Shabbos. One may pay a weekly sum, which includes Shabbos. One may pay a monthly sum, which includes Shabbos, but one may not pay specifically just for a Shabbos activity. People do not think about this and do not consider this. But if a person only hires a person on Shabbos, one's not allowed to pay just for that service. It's a part of a larger package, it's fine, but this that's called havloah. You cannot just simply hire somebody for Shabbos. Can you give a gift on Shabbos? So only if the gift is needed for Shabbos as well. And what about collateral? One can only give it if it's needed for Shabbos or a mitzvah, and then only if you give it without explanation as well. So otherwise it would be a business transaction. Our last concept today is documents and reading. Ordinary documents, what's called shtari hadyatos, are not allowed to be read on Shabbos. So what kind of things are included? Included in this are business documents, invoices, accounting, letters, and so on. What about just scanning them and not reading about them aloud? So no. If you know it's business related, you may not even look. But if you're unsure if it is, you may quickly peruse to see, but not read it aloud. What if there's a letter and I don't know what's in it? So I may scan it again silently, since it may have person's issues relating to a person, and if it is business related, one has to stop looking at that. May one look at read a book or captions under portraits or in secular history books? So one may not read secular novels, frivolous history books. They are forbidden to be read even silently. That's what the Kitzur points out. Are there any secular books which may be read on Shabbos? The answer is yes. If they're ethical or inspire spiritual growth, like works of Josephus, then even then one should not read them excessively as well. It's funny because to many people, Shabbos is the time you read books, which is fine. Just understanding that's not really the point of the day, and according to many authorities, in fact, it's actually prohibited. What about newspapers? The Mishnah Berurah does bring a opinion of the Shus Yaakov that it's allowed. We're talking about Jewish newspapers. But many forbid it because invariably there's commercial news, there's business news. Oftentimes, most things in the newspaper are sensational, which means they're sad and really painful to read. Certainly about Israel, so it's not allowed to be read on Shabbos. Are you allowed to measure on Shabbos? The one's not allowed to measure unless it's for the sake of a mitzvah. Some of these concepts that we've just talked about today are things which are to a lot of people are unknown. They just don't know that these are the halachas. And it's meant to be that Shabbos is framed as a time that a person is safe to experience Shabbos properly. A person is meant to be detached from the world around them, because if one's not detached, then it really isn't Shabbos. One's just doing what one does during the weekday without pressing a button. And so it's important that to reform one's behavior, one reforms one's Shabbos table conversation. Shabbos is meant to be a time where a person thinks about why one does what one does. Reinvest in the relationships one didn't have time to during the week. That's what Shabbos is meant to be. It's meant to be a time to stop, to think, to pivot, not to be engaged in everything one is involved with during the week. Otherwise, in a certain sense, one missed the boat. This is what part of the halachas that we're learning about today. Have a wonderful and meaningful day.